Bash and Mags were not in the best of places when we last saw them. What can you tease about where we find them when the season picks up?
Yeah. Um, they they start in a very tentative place with each other, but not in conflict. You know, there's kind of a reset, and what ends up happening very soon in the new season is that they find out that they're kind of thrown in together in a competition for a job. And so we kind of take the romantic tension and the chemistry and we kind of put it next to sort of a professional, like a little bit of professional competition. And we let things start to heat up in that context. And we think that for those two, it's their, it's their most like speaking of the season as a whole, you know, just to tease that, we think it's their most emotional and most romantic and most affecting season for those two.
Absolutely. Well, and Theo is in a difficult position because of the suspension. What can you share about his mindset and how he is going to be approaching his career going forward?
He feels very much like he's the guy who, when our whole series started, seemed like he really had his life under control. But as we meet him now in the beginning of season four, it's like couldn't be less under control. And he really feels like the world has left him behind in a way. At the end of season three, he loses his job or he gets suspended and he loses his privileges and he's really on the outside looking in. And so, and in every way in his life, with his family, with his, you know, kids, with his work. And so when we meet him, he's waiting to see if he has a future at York Memorial. And he's been doing remote consulting. He's been doing like Zoom doctoring. And he he wants to like roll up his sleeves and get involved, but the virtual wall is really frustrating him. So so for a very like who seemed like a very in a way like he seemed like a milquetoast guy in the beginning of this show, but as we get to know the character, we see him like chomping at the bit to do something, and as always happens with Theo, it might just get him into trouble.
Always. June has a very personal kind of mission this season. What can you share about her journey she's going on?
Yeah, June is an interesting one for us. She got everything she wanted. You know, she is very driven and she's very on top of her like life choices. And when we meet her at the beginning of season four, it's like she's a full-fledged surgeon, you know, in a way she has autonomy that is kind of rare for somebody her age. And but she's like, you know, there's something I think people identify with. She has everything she wants, but there's still something missing. And what's frustrating is she doesn't know what it is, you know? So there's like a piece of her that she doesn't know what's missing and she it shouldn't be. And so I think that's animating her, you know, and she's looking, you know, she sort of knows this deep down but doesn't know it. And she's just always searching for that piece of human connection which eludes her. And I think early on in the season, she starts to open herself up a little bit more to that idea.
Absolutely. Looking specifically at the premiere, it's a very fascinating way and fun way of telling that story. What can you share about the decision of you guys made with formatting, and what can you kind of tease about that?
We have always played with we've always enjoyed playing with form where we can, and so we decided, yeah, for the premiere just to totally mix it up and try something structurally that we hadn't tried before, and so the premiere kind of plays with point of view um, in a fun way, kind of to tell the story of this like family that were essentially hiking what seems like hiking, but got separated for some reason, and each had a different experience, and we kind of filter it through to our different doctors. And I think we also were sort of narratively trying to use that device of people's points of views and people's intersecting stories to have an interesting and fun way into the season to let the audience catch up to where everybody was and sort of get us off to the races, as it were.
In the second episode that's also airing this week, there's a sinkhole. What can you tease about how Bash will be handling that?
Yeah, we we were like very excited about that one. We do a sinkhole that opens up into kind of swallows this entire vehicle whole, and Bash has to go in into this sinkhole and rescue this guy. And so it's a good opportunity whenever we can, it's harder and harder to realistically generate opportunities for Bash in the fourth season of the show to use his field medicine techniques because there's only so much that it's going to be believable, that this keeps happening to him. But so we would do maybe one a season, I think, for the most part. And this is a good one. And yeah, it puts him in a situation where he has no equipment, no tools, and also something that happens down there, which is that they have to wait. There's not that much he can do other than wait for the response teams, which is a really interesting opportunity to examine who he is from a character perspective, which is also what we're always looking for. Like, this is a man of action. He always wants to run in, he always wants to do the bold thing. But if he has to just sit there and wait for fate to unfold, what happens to him? And we kind of use that to interact with his past a little bit.